Thank you for joining us today for another Chamber webinar. And we're lucky today to be joined by four fantastic guests to discuss cash flow and maximising profits. And for those that have been following us, you'll know that we have covered this off once or twice throughout the program, but it is a space that keeps changing, and it is a space that we're hearing is really difficult to navigate for businesses and business owners. And I thought it was time to come back since we've heard the federal budget, maybe revisit all of those things that are in the market that might be able to help you out. Today, I welcome Jacquie Malloch from LBW Business and Wealth Advisors. Welcome, Jacquie.
Thank you.
Hugh Allen from More Australia. Welcome, Hugh.
Yep. G'day.
Stephen McHenry from McHenry Partners. Welcome, Stephen.
Afternoon.
And Lachlan Wilson from Findex. Welcome, Lachlan.
G'day, thanks.
I'd invite all of our participants to use the Q&A function if they want to ask any questions, and I'll be monitoring that and hope to be able to get some of your questions in, as well as using the chat function. And our panelists and anyone else is welcome to actually respond to anyone's questions via the chat and really have a separate conversation going on there if you need more details. Today is deliberately intended to be 30 minutes just because we know how time poor people are, and it's about perhaps giving you some guidance on what your next steps could be and what some things that you might want to look up following this meeting. So I might start with you, Jacquie. Welcome. And
Thanks for having me.
Do you mind recapping? I know LBW have done great summaries over the journey on your website about the kind of stimuluses that are available, but do you mind just recapping on where we're at for business owners?
Yeah, certainly. So I'll start with probably the most well-known stimulus, which is the JobKeeper program. So JobKeeper Extension 1 has just started in the last month, also known as JobKeeper 2.0. So all businesses, even those who have previously been in JobKeeper, need to requalify. And it's slightly different to last time. So there's a couple of tiers this time. So depending on if you worked more than 80 hours in a 4-week period, for an eligible testing period, you might be in tier 1 to be eligible for $1,200 a fortnight, and those who worked less hours in tier 2 getting $750 a fortnight. So there's a few tests involved in making sure you're eligible. The main one is for most businesses, they compare their September quarter, so September 2020 quarter against last year September quarter, and just checking to see they've got the 30% downturn. So if they're a large business or a not-for-profit, there's a few different rates for them to check. So this time you're actually using actual turnover. So it's when perhaps you've prepared your BAS, you can check the 2 periods against that to check your turnover. So there's a few other things to think about. If perhaps you started your business in the last year, so that turnover test isn't going to be eligible. So there's some alternative tests that you can research and check to see if they may be applicable to you. So I definitely recommend you chat to your accountant or advisor if you think that you may be in that category. And when you want to go do your testing, jump onto the business portal and you can make yourself eligible through that. There's JobKeeper Extension 2 starting in January, and you'll need to reapply for that as well. Just because you may not have been in JobKeeper previously, you can still reapply in the next couple of quarters. So I'll move on to some state grants that are around as well. And most of these grants, they require that you're an eligible JobKeeper recipient before you even start. So the third round of business support, you can get a grant of $10,000 to $20,000, depending on the size of your payroll. But this time they've made the eligibility requirement for industries most impacted by the COVID-19 restrictions. So to be eligible, you must be an employer, have some employees, your payroll has to be less than 10 million, you're GST registered, and you're up to date with, you're registered with a federal or state regulator. So
that's the Business Support Fund, just so people know, through Business Victoria.
Correct, yes, that's right.
As opposed to the Cash Booster?
Yes, which is all sort of wrapped up now, the Cash Boost,
Yep, okay.
The Australian government on the BASs. Yes, you're right. So the state grant, that state grant closes on the 23rd of November.
Yep.
So another one that is around this time in this set of Victorian state grants is the Sole Trader Support Fund. So this is for some people that have missed out previously. So the sole trader, no employees, and you have a registered premises, a commercial premises. You still need to be a JobKeeper participant and operate in one of those industries affected by the government closures, and a government grant of up to $3,000 can be available. So definitely look into that one if you're a sole trader and you've missed out previously. Another one available is if you're in the licensed hospitality. So this is, you can get this one or the business support fund. You can't get both, but this one is up to, for regional areas, up to $25,000 grant, depending on how many patrons that you have. And you need to have a food registration and a liquor license to apply. And one last one I'd like to mention is the outdoor eating and entertainment package. So if you want to set up some outdoor space to be able to have more patrons, you can get a $5,000 grant to adapt your outdoor dining. And that is in conjunction with some of the other grants available as well. And that one closes on the 11th of December.
And where can people go to get,
sorry.
Where can people go to get more information on that, Jacquie?
Yeah, absolutely. Go if you just Google Vic grants, Victorian state grants, and it'll pop up and be some extra information there for you.
All right, awesome, terrific. And we're all pushing for actually an extension of JobKeeper for those hardest hit industries, just so people know in the background. So hopefully we'll get some news towards the end of the year for post-March, which will be a godsend for some really hard hit industries. So Hugh, what other supports can businesses access around Geelong?
Yep. So there's obviously all those cash grants that Jackie's talking about, but there's other support that businesses can get. So there's the Victorian Chamber of Commerce and Industry. So that has a mentoring program at the moment. And so that is matching up small businesses that are eligible to be with an expert in an area to provide that support and, for the business to become COVID normal almost and, get through these difficult times. And that program includes 4 free 2-hour sessions run over a 3-month period. So that's just, for the one-on-one sessions with the business and that mentor that they're matched with. Eligible businesses are Victorian businesses, small businesses with less than 20 full-time employees, hold an ABN, and does exclude public companies and charitable institutes. So that's one. Otherwise, City of Grow Geelong, we have our own mentoring program as well. So the business support program. So those details are on the City of Geelong website, similar to the other one, where you're connected with an expert for a free one-on-one session to go through whatever services you identify as where you require help. So the areas you can pick support with are the marketing, finance, human resources, legal, accounting, and there's a few other areas there. So eligibility and details for that are on the City of Geelong website. There's also various programs and wellbeing support programs available as well, which is really important to make looking after ourselves and our staff. So the most important thing with the business is its people. So making sure, especially while everyone's, Geelong's not as bad, but, people still working from home, locked down, don't have that support that they normally have. So it's actually looking at those wellbeing programs. And I guess, last thing, support local businesses, shop local.
Great one. Yeah, it's a really good message. And Lachlan, thank you for joining us. Now, the federal budget was eagerly anticipated, and I think that's an understatement recently. And a big part of that was quite a few things, but certainly the instant asset write-offs, as well as R&D concessions, as well as then being able to write profits, losses against previous year's profits. Lachlan, do you want to take us through that in a little bit more detail?
Yeah, absolutely. So the instant asset write-off is probably the big one. You can now essentially write off any value of assets. It had previously been capped at $150,000 for small businesses, but now there's no limit here. And it's also been made available to essentially all businesses, because it's now capped at a $5 billion turnover. So that's essentially every business in Australia, with the aim being that the big end of town will look to make those investments, and hopefully that will flow down to the smaller businesses and kickstart the economy. So that instant asset write-off is available on new assets and upgrades to existing assets. So if you're looking to upgrade an existing piece of machinery, previously you'd have to capitalise that and claim it over a number of years. Now you can claim it all in the first year. Unfortunately, for those looking to go out and buy themselves a new Maserati, a luxury car limit does still apply. That's at about 59,000. So unfortunately, you can't write off all of that just yet. These measures are in place from budget night, so 7th of October, and they run through to 30 June 22. The R&D side of things, so these changes have been slated to be made in the 1st of July 21. So for small businesses, the refundable offset, so being potentially cash back on your R&D expenditure, that has increased to 18.5% plus a tax rate. So when these come into effect in 2022 financial year, the amount of funds that you'll receive back is the 25% for the tax rate plus the 18.5%. So that's 43.5 cents in the dollar for your R&D expenditure that you can claim back as a potentially cash back. And this has been, the cap was going to be slated at $4 million, but this has now been removed, so you can claim back as much as you can. The tax losses that they've talked about, so this was an old Labor policy from a few years ago, which they've brought back in. So essentially, if you make tax losses in the 2021 financial year, but you paid tax in the 2020 financial year, you can bring those losses and essentially apply them back to your previous income. So if that brings you into losses, you can claim back those tax that you've paid in the previous year. So and again, trying to get cash back into the economy as well.
Yeah, and that's a really important point, because a lot of people don't have the money at the moment to invest in assets or R&D, and that's actually a good way of bringing money back into your business, you know, if you're a smaller business that's been doing it tough. So
absolutely. It's all well and good to say, you know, go spend what you want and you can claim it back as a tax deduction, but if you don't have the funds, well, then no one's going to be spending. So it's kind of a two-step approach there.
And just so people understand, I always find it interesting with the asset write-off, how the reality is that's just a timing difference in the end, isn't it? If the useful life is 5 years, you're really just bringing it forward to this year, and you still, so in many ways, there's no additional benefit.
Correct. Yeah. Never do anything for a tax benefit, because it does just work itself in the end, but it is an incentive. If you were thinking about holding off on doing something, you now have that slight extra motivation to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously at the bit, you know, by people purchasing those assets, it helps all of those suppliers and businesses all down the supply chain. So exactly. I can see how they're bringing a lot of that forward and pumping that into the economy. So Steve, so good luck to the Cats on Saturday night. We need to start with that. And another really big part of people maintaining their cash flow has been chatting to the banks about relief. And we know that the banks have been really open to that, because they want to keep their customers, and similarly with landlords as well. How would people go about those sort of things?
Yeah, well, definitely the financial support's there from the banks and the landlords, and that's all probably enforced by the government, really. So, but with the banks, the loan repayments for 6 months that were deferred to September, that's pretty much over now. So, but the banks are considering another 4-month extension. So instead of being an easy approval now, this 4-month extension, business have to go through the normal process, and it's a bit more stringent, but there's another 4-month extension potentially available. The banks have got these products across the board, with COVID relief products up to $1 million. So secured loans up to $1 million, unsecured $250,000. The loans are going to be repaid in 5 years. Interest rates around 3 to 4.5%. So the banks look for 3 things in these applications. So it's interesting. everyone thinks serviceability and security is the main thing, but the bank looks for the character of the applicant and who they're dealing with, and the belief that they're going to get the money back over a period of over the 5-year period. So it's really important to involve your advisor, your accountant, in making a professional approach to the bank with the finance application. Sure, they need past financials, but they need a predicted profitability, cash flow requirements. So you need to put a business case together to convince the bank you can repay this over 5 years. But these loans are available. From a rental point of view, we, the government got behind these commercial leasing guidelines during COVID-19. So anyone that's affected by COVID in business, their turnover by more than 30%, they can go to their landlord through their rental manager and ask for a rental adjustment. So probably everyone's probably well aware of it, but look, as an example, if someone was paying $1,000 a month in rent, their turnover is down by 30%, they'd be entitled to a $150 per month waiver and a $150 deferral, which they'd have to pay, after COVID finishes over a period of time, normally 2 years of the life of the lease. So I was speaking to a local commercial rental business in Geelong, and they said of their 600 rental properties, Ben, there was 40% of the tenants applied for rental adjustment in recent times. So the rental managers are busy trying to negotiate all this and bed it all down. So, but they've pretty much said that it's an open discussion between the two parties. They really need proof of turnover that it has gone down. They might need copies of BASs and financials to get that adjustment organised. And it can extend beyond 30th of September too, Ben. It's as COVID continues through to March, this adjustments with the landlord can be considered between now and December, and then also for the next quarter through to March. So it's an ongoing thing where business can get a rental adjustment from their landlord.
Yeah. Stephen, can I ask you a question? Now, one thing that people need to understand is that accountants are often everyone's financial counsellors at the moment, and often the first point of call. And I know you have been very late nights and late night phone calls with your clients and so on over the last 6 months, all of you. So, so how are you feeling the market is? How has it changed over the last 6 months, Stephen, from the beginning to now?
I think a lot of our clients have been affected and they've been getting this support. And I think it's a credit to the government that they've been able to provide these means of support. So I think we're all okay in the short term. It's just a matter of when the banks are now stopping the support. JobKeeper is going to eventually finish. How a business is going to get through the other side. And probably as an example of one of my worst hit clients is in the nightclub industry, and they had their doors shut. So they've gone to access everything that we've talked about today, from rent reductions fully, JobKeeper, the 3 government grants. They've even accessed their superannuation. There's a $10,000 access in June and also $10,000 in July for the next financial period. So they've had a dip at that as well to keep them going. They've been able to go and earn some income while they're on JobKeeper. You can earn an income from an employer that's not on JobKeeper, or be self-employed. So they had some income to get through. So, but that type of business, they've got a bit to go now, and they need 200 people at least in their venue to actually be profitable. So that's probably worse to scale, and a lot of businesses are probably better off than that. So, but I think we're all hoping to get through the other side and support those businesses. Let's see.
Yeah. And Jacquie, at LBW, similarly, I know, you've been so focused on your clients. How have you found the trend over the last 6 months, and how are people beginning to feel?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd say from the first month or so when COVID hit and Australia was really hit quite badly, there was quite a bit of panic. A lot of people didn't quite know whether they were going to make any money tomorrow or what was going to happen in the next couple of weeks. So absolutely, there's a lot of that financial counselling and making sure that everyone knew that we got you, we will help you get through this. But now I feel like the government has shown that that assistance along the way. The cash boost has been amazing to help businesses, and JobKeeper one and two that's just starting has definitely helped to the businesses just to know that they've got that little bit of support just to get through the other side. But I'd say a lot of businesses have been very conservative. They probably haven't been spending money where perhaps they might have at another time. But yeah, it feels like businesses can see they're going to get out the other side as the JobKeeper now is reducing, and in the next stage it'll reduce again. Absolutely, there's going to be the pinch for the businesses that have really been affected. So those in the tourism industry and what Stephen mentioned with nightclub industry, those industries that are going to be the last, the gyms, the ones that are going to be last to open back up. They may feel the pinch as the JobKeeper drops back, but hopefully the government will come out and still have that assistance, and the state government grants absolutely help as well.
Yeah. And when you look at where Australia is positioned, we are in a stronger position to be able to provide additional grants. Hugh, being from more Australia, but certainly part of the More Group, which is in the top 10 accounting firms internationally, are you hearing how we sit in comparison to other countries?
Yeah, it's pretty surprising how other countries are really, I've had meetings internationally, and, they're surprised that, we're in lockdown with, 15 cases a day. They go, 15 cases, that just your street, So, yeah, but, business is still trading overseas. Like they're not in lockdown where we are in metropolitan Melbourne. But it's definitely having a hit everywhere as well. So, there's still that international trade happening. It's obviously, and the businesses that are succeeding, the ones that have found the workaround and adapted to it as well. So even our ones that are in Australia and locally, the ones that have evolved and thought of other ideas and changed, the ones that are sort of going to get through this rather than just shutting up shop and having to write it out, they found other means to have other sources of income and think outside the box, which has worked well for them. And I guess, the businesses that seek support from their advisors and, speak to us, get that advice, they're going to, do better rather than just trying to battle their way through it themselves. So it's also, it's being be proactive, get on the front foot to just have those discussions.
And those discussions at the moment, are they also involving just the complexity around being able to budget for the next periods coming up? And have you had those conversations with clients?
Yeah, we're definitely encouraging all our clients to do their budgeting, get that in place. Like it's been pretty hard over the last 6 to 9 months because it's been such an uncertainty. But knowing where your shortfalls are going to be for cash flow, cash is king in any industry, but more particularly now. And I guess that's why the government's been such a hard push with the cash flow boost and JobKeeper to get the cash into the economy. Still recognising where your triggers are, where your costs are, what you can and can't change. But yeah, budget is always, very important for any business at any point in time, but more so now. See how you, and then speaking to your banks and your landlords and seeing whatever arrangements you can come to.
Yeah, and I'll come back to you here because I'm interested in hearing everyone's perspective on what the next 12 months does look like. But before that, Lachlan, knowing that we're in this probably for the long haul, what kind of stimulus do you think could be in the pipelines moving forward to further assist those really hardest hit industries?
Oh, JobKeeper 3's around the corner, isn't it? Isn't that what you just said?
I have no inside rail on this, but I'm certainly pushing for it in some of those really affected industries such as the arts, tourism, and to some extent hospitality or more events. That's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I guess there's a fear that some businesses won't be able to afford to reopen once restrictions lift. So I think we're going to see that targeted industry support. Potentially probably another round of grants. So the grants have started off broad and they've narrowed down. So potentially narrow them down again. And especially when Victorian businesses are going to make up the majority of those JobKeeper 2 applications. I'd expect those grants to be tied to JobKeeper eligibility. And then also just the funding and training being made available so that businesses can trade in a new COVID normal operation. So continuing to get funds to access those digital programs, such as Shopify, encouraging that marketing and advertising spend for the digital platforms so you can keep encouraging customers to use that click and collect operation, so people aren't always still out and about, so they're actually, COVID becomes a normal part of business these days.
Yeah. And with the state budget a few weeks away, and no one can forecast that, so this is a question without notice, but are you hoping a lot of these kind of programs are included at state level?
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah.
There was plenty of fat in the last budget, so I imagine it's going to be a spending budget a lot like the federal government one. So.
Yeah, and really targeted towards businesses, I think.
Yep.
We hope, anyway.
Yep.
So Stephen, given everything we've heard today, and given your conversations with your clients, how are you expecting the next 12 months what does the recovery look like?
Yeah, I think it's going to be fine when we get through to, say, February, March, and then I think we'll see, like Lachie just said before, if some businesses can actually get out the other side and afford to keep going, because they're probably getting pretty low on resources at the moment. So I think it'll be fine through to February, March, and then I'm probably expecting March to December to be pretty tough for a lot of businesses. So yeah, I think as accountants we're going to be kept pretty busy with that support, which we've been doing, and we look forward to helping all these businesses to get through a pretty tough period, I think, ahead of us.
Well done. And Jacquie, how are you? How are you predicting the next 12 months to play out?
Yeah, it's interesting. Some industries are doing really well. So I've got a client who delivers parcels, so he's been very busy. So everyone's doing lots of online shopping. Some industries, perhaps there's going to be hard. There needs to be a need for what people are selling and people wanting to buy it. So we can probably see that there's going to be a change in that. So I've got a very good relationship with my travel agent, and who knows what her role will be in the future. So it's definitely going to depend on the industry. Hopefully we all get through this out the other side and keep on going strong. Yeah.
There are some really robust forecasts from economists predicting, even the federal government was looking at about 4%, I think, as a recovery, and I've seen up to 7% as a V-type recovery for next year, and then returning to trend at about 3.25. What is that kind of a fair prediction, Hugh, in your mind?
Oh goodness.
Jacquie, sorry.
Yeah. Yes. So definitely. I believe the economists. It seems like they've put some research behind it, and it's a glass half full approach to it. So hopefully everyone takes that on and goes out and does some spending just to get the economy back on track, and then we can get those figures happening.
And Hugh, it seems that we can be more positive in Australia than in some international areas. Would that be a fair assessment?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think what Dan's trying to do, similar to what happened in New Zealand, try and get rid of it altogether, get rid of COVID, so then we can go back to a COVID normal. It's still not going to be normal what we had BC, but there's going to be changes. But I think people just will adapt to those changes. Like even we were talking about the Business Excellence Awards last week, how great they were. And it's like, well, pre-COVID probably wouldn't have been considered to be those sort of events live. So going forward, we may still have an audience in a crowd, but we'll still have that live streaming option, and it gets a broader reach. And so other businesses doing the same thing, like venues that are in the hospitality area that are going and using these grants to go outdoor entertainment more and live streaming performances and things like that. So it's going to definitely have a change in the future of how businesses operate. But it will become the new normal.
And just quickly, I'll go around the room to everyone. I'm going to ask the question, what would your number one thing be in the state budget in a few weeks? If there's anything you could see that would best help your clients. Lachlan, is there anything, number one thing you could choose?
Grants. The grants have been really helpful. Yep. Targeted grants would be good. Yep.
Stephen?
Yeah, the hospitality and travel industry, I just hope there's real support for there. I just think they're on their knees, and it's we've just got to help the industries that need it most. Because I think to date there's been some industries, some businesses that received something that probably didn't need it, but others that got it but needed more. So I think we need a more direct approach with those that need it.
Targeted support, yeah. And Jacquie, what would you be asking for if you had an audience with the Premier? Or the
No,
Treasurer?
right. So I think, although it's a federal grant, the cash boost was really great for a lot of clients. So the state government can do something similar just to help businesses keep up to date with their compliance and regulation and BASs. I think that was a really great, it was a great stimulus.
Yeah. And Hugh, last question. What would you ask the state government for in the forthcoming budget?
Yeah, I think similar to Jacquie. The grants are the big one, and the ones that our clients have loved the most was the cash flow boost and JobKeeper. That's kept half of them alive, and so especially in Victoria, we've done it a lot tougher compared to other states. So I think more of that sort of stuff to come through and inject cash into the economy and let us keep on spending and support other businesses.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, our guests, thank you for joining us today. And to all our participants, thank you so much for joining us. As I said, the half an hour goes very quickly, and we can, even on these topics, we can talk for much longer, but we do try and keep it to 30 minutes. And thank you to Jacquie Malloch from LBW Business and Wealth Advisors, Hugh Allen from More Australia, Stephen McHenry from McHenry Partners, and Lachlan Wilson from Findex. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, Ben. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.